long day.
Long day, but I've been waiting for this one all day. Thanks for joining me, Mark.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk about some crypto, some AI, some trends going on in the world today.
Metaverse.
Let's do it.
All right.
Web3 is changing. The largest ticket seller in the world. Tesla. Elon Musk just changed his Twitter logo.
Hello,
There
Yogi.
you go. Okay, so we got the network neutrality story. We got the Mixin story.
When we talk about mixing, we should be aggressive. I think that will get clicks.
Aggressive.
As in dude, decentralization doesn't work. And you're like, yes, it does. This is why.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to be like, Mark, I love you, man, but no.
I mean, decentralization, of course decentralization works, but you actually have to do it, right? You can't just use, if I have we know from science that you can't crack a Bitcoin wallet, you can't crack an Ethereum wallet if you don't know the private key. But if I leave the private key laying in the lobby of an airport, yeah, of course your money's going to get stolen.
Well, that's the problem with decentralization is getting humans to do stuff.
But it's not is mind-boggling to me that one private key in the cloud led to the theft of $200 million, because I've been in DAOs that I've been involved in that have $20,000 in a shared treasury, has a 3-part system. You can steal one of the private keys or 2 of the 5 private keys, and you still cannot get into the treasury. And
so how many keys do you need typically for a decentralized DAO in order to have access to the funds?
I mean, at Free Ross DAO, it was 9 of 12 you needed to have.
So every DAO has a different key setup?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that's how M of N encryption works.
Got it.
Right. So that's inherent in Bitcoin, Ethereum, DAOs. Every blockchain technology supports M of N encryption.
But in Bitcoin, you only need 2 keys, right? The public key and the private key.
But that's if you're using a solo wallet.
Right.
So, but Bitcoin also supports what they're called multi-sig wallets, or M of N. Right. And Ethereum does this, and DAOs, it's easy to do it on DAOs with a wallet called Gnosis Safe, but there's other wallets that do the same thing. And essentially, M stands for the number of signers required to sign a transaction, and N is the total number of signers. And you can make it 1 of 5 if you want low security, or you can make it 4 of 5 if you want high security, or you can make it 99 out of 100 if you want a real challenge.
But how does decentralization work if you have all these people who need to sign it? What if there's 9 out of 10 people who agree with the signature, but that 10th person does not?
Doesn't matter. Wherever your consensus mark is where the transaction happens. So if you've got, let's say you've got a 10-person multi-signer wallet, right? Or 11.
But only 5 of them need to sign it for it to be approved, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So then how is,
that just puts the Mixin thing in better perspective as to how can one key in the cloud compromise $200 million?
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I could do a lot with that.
Right.
Wow. So basically this decentralized network got one of their private keys exposed, and that led to the theft of $200 million.
I mean, I'm ostensibly, because they're not really talking about the details of the theft. What they're saying is there was keys in the cloud that were stolen. Now, I'm assuming it was one key that led to the theft of $200 million. If it was an M of N encryption wallet, which means they stored 4 or 5 or 10 keys in the same cloud, in the same cloud drive, why would you do that?
No, that's really stupid. Again, I think the decentralization dilemma goes back to humans and getting humans to do certain things. But let me put in another perspective. How will decentralization work when we have a company named Coinbase who owns 5% of the entire Bitcoin supply. And there's another company by the name of MicroStrategy, which owns 1% of the entire Bitcoin supply. What happens when 10 companies own 5% of the entire Bitcoin supply and they can make decisions of what the cryptocurrency decentralized network does next?
They can't.
Why is that?
Well, so Bitcoin is, as we've talked about in a variety of contexts, the gold standard for decentralization, right? It is the most Byzantine fault-tolerant blockchain. It's the one that all other blockchains hope and aspire to be. You've got a lot of ways to get things done in terms of software development in the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's the same group of devs that write all the software, but you have to have a lot of different factions sign off on those developments for them to actually kind of come into being. Miners have to accept it, which is a diverse group of people from all around the planet with a bunch of varied sundry interests that are at odds with the users in a lot of times. And the users being people who have wallets, right? The user-activated soft fork, that was a type of fork that occurred during the 2017 era. Then you've got the people. Simply owning Bitcoin does not give you, it's not like if you have 5%, you have a 5% voice. It's not like a DAO.
But you talk about the users being, the wallets who own the Bitcoin. I mean, it's the same thing with owning 5% of the supply. You're technically a user because you own 5% of all tokens. Is that wrong?
It's wrong. It's not wrong that you're a user. It's not that 5% ownership does not imply that you have a 5% voice.
That doesn't. I don't think that makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense to me, I can't imagine it makes sense to most viewers.
Well, it's not. It's because tokens in Bitcoin, or the coins in Bitcoin, do not indicate a vote.
So what
it's
does?
not a DAO.
What does?
Primarily nodes, because nodes are where the code is executed. Node operations.
Are nodes separate from miners?
Nodes are, so it's a three-part system.
Okay.
Right? So you've got
for us.
You've got wallets, you've got nodes, and you've got miners. Those are the three critical components of what constitutes the Bitcoin protocol. They're all interdependent, right? So a fork can start at any side of that, right? And if you look at the Qt wallet, which is the reference implementation for Bitcoin, it combines all three into a single piece of software. The mining software runs inside of the wallet, the node is operated inside of the wallet, and the wallet itself is the interface for both of those things.
Got it.
But as it has evolved and grown, those things get kind of disintermediated. They're not the same thing for everybody.
So let me propose this. What happens, though, when these miners own certain percentages of the supply? Because now not only do they have the mining side of it, they also have the wallet side of it. And it seems like both of those two things are interconnected to the node side of it. So it still poses a problem, in my opinion.
It's more important what share of hashing power they own than what amount of Bitcoin they own.
Now, that's a whole different perspective, and I still stand on my argument as if there are big companies now, such as Riot Platforms, Marathon Digital Holdings, and plenty more that have massive Bitcoin mining facilities, owning probably, let's say a certain supply, a certain percentage of the entire supply, and a certain percentage of all the hash power. So how does that
It becomes problematic when a single entity, not a single pool, but a single entity, starts to have a hashing power stake that eclipses 35% of the network. That's where, in the past, things become problematic for a blockchain.
Is that possible, though, for one company to own 35%?
It's possible. It's not
How
very
practical.
It's not plausible.
Okay, but let me put it to you this way. What if one company owns 10%, another company owns 10%, and those two companies merge? Now this one company owns 20%.
Right, but it also needs to be maintained. And it also, and like coalitions can form too. I mean, that's what pools are. Pools are coalitions of miners, right? But these things are constantly shifting, and the economics don't ever stay static. So just because one company may, at a certain point, or one pool a certain point in time may own 35 or 40%, which has happened multiple times, does not mean it'll stay that way.
So do you think that it's concerning that Coinbase owns 5% of the entire Bitcoin supply?
It is concerning from a market perspective. It is not concerning from a governance perspective.
It seems like there's a major misconception that if one company does own such a big part of the supply, that they may have, let me rephrase that. It seems concerning that one company could have a percentage of the entire supply and really destroy the idea of decentralization. Do you agree or disagree with this?
I mean, if it's Bitcoin we're talking about, no, I do not agree. Now, here's where it becomes a concern. It becomes a concern if me, Mark Hopkins, or you have your personal wealth and financial well-being is tied up in the price of Bitcoin, then you're going to be very concerned about the fact that Coinbase has such a large percentage, or MicroStrategy has a large percentage. You're going to be paying attention to their moves. It's the same thing that if
a traditional company owned,
if 60% of your net worth is tied up in IBM stock, you're going to be following the CEO of IBM pretty closely.
Right. So that's pretty interesting, actually, to think about. What if, in any case, if 5% of the entire supply got dumped on, we would all be in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems that, to less experienced people in the space, including myself, because I'm honestly a little bit ignorant to this. You go on Twitter, you see everybody's crying that there's no more decentralization.
Well, this is where
I guess it's Twitter, though.
This is Twitter, yeah. This is the sad state of cryptocurrency onboarding.
Yeah.
At this point in time, there's a kind of a pathway for adoption that people, as they get further and further into it, and it used to be kind of one track, everybody coexisted, and you'd have your corners of specialty and expertise, but Bitcoiners got along with Litecoiners and Ripple people over there in the corner being weird, but now there's all these different camps where you're a scammer if you don't like my coin.
Yeah.
And we all know who we're talking about if you're in the business.
Right.
But the problem with that mentality and that cultish behavior is they are driving away the folks. All the OGs in Bitcoin don't hang out with the maximalists anymore. Eric Voorhees and Charlie Shrem and Charlie Lee and all these people that were, and Vitalik Buterin, all these people that were very instrumental in early Bitcoin culture have been driven away by the current most popular Bitcoiners. Because they are technologists before they are Bitcoiners.
Right.
They are innovators.
They want to keep innovating in the crypto landscape versus becoming a cult-like, team.
And the whole mentality of current Bitcoiners is if it's not Bitcoin, it's a coin. So you can't even think about other ways of decentralization without being, untouchable.
That's a major problem in the industry is we have different groups who become kind of cult-like in their communities, and it really does challenge the onboarding process. And I want to kind of dive deeper into that because you mentioned onboarding, and that's what we do over here at Web3 Ready. So what kind of challenges do you see in the crypto landscape right now with Web3 and crypto education and onboarding for new users?
Well, so there's been a lot of phases of adoption that I feel have been a little bit too far divorced from the principles of decentralization. This mixing thing is a great example, right? If Bitcoiners and OG Bitcoiners and Ethereans felt more comfortable, being in the same culture, somebody could have told these guys, look, it's okay to be a different coin, but you still have to have security best practices, and you should decentralize and secure your private keys. Bitcoiners are great about repeating the phrase, not your keys, not your crypto. Don't put it in the cloud. Use proper hardware. Obviously, that culture didn't exist at Mixin.
Yeah.
And a variety of other bridges that have been exploited over the last 5 years. These layer 2 bridges.
Right.
Same exact thing.
Well, so let me ask you this. Do you think as crypto evolves that the idea of decentralization will remain as important in terms of, new adoption for new users? Because it seems like the less it's crypto, the less it's, the ethos of what crypto is built on, the more you have onboarding, the more you have adoption.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is. I mean, I'm of two minds here, right? We had this discussion about a month ago on the roundtable where there is a class of user that is, I think, instrumental in building in the crypto ecosystem that desperately needs to understand the underlying principles down to its core. And then there is the general public that just wants to use cool stuff that works.
But that's exactly where the gap happens, is these builders are not on the same page as the users. Whereas the users want a very seamless experience, seamless interface, whereas the builders want to continue to stick to these ethos, which might not necessarily translate in a good experience and a good interface.
I think the problem is the opposite. I think that these devs are not as versed as they need to be in principles of decentralization. And the users
are they not versed, or are they just not applying it as much as they used to?
See, I don't think they have good fundamental knowledge. That's the problem.
I mean, that's what happens when so many new people enter into the space, though.
Right. And because of the grotesqueries of crypto culture between Bitcoiners and the rest of the ecosystem, they're like a lot of the new crowd has thrown the baby out in the bath. Like for me, when I first noticing the schism was when I started working more closely with IBM with their futurist group, and I met with a lot of the senior fellows at IBM who, would never say it on camera, but in a bar after the conference would tell me, yeah, Hyperledger is just Ethereum, but we can't say the word cryptocurrency on stage because Bitcoin is too closely identified with Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road.
I mean, even nowadays, I feel like it's better to say digital assets than cryptocurrency.
But even if you look at the Federal Reserve is putting out all these conferences where they are using they want to use the word cryptocurrency, and it's bizarre the corners of the world that say, no, we recognize the value of decentralization of cryptocurrency. Meanwhile, the builders in the enterprise ecosystem and what's grown out of it, like Hedera Hashgraph and Solana, are backing away from it and going with digital assets and these other kind of milquetoast versions of the term.
Well, I think there's a lot of things lost in translation when you're trying to, take someone who is very advanced in the industry and kind of bring it back down to somebody who might not be as advanced. I think the problem with crypto right now is a new user does not know anything about it on an educational level, but then also on a regulatory level, there's so much uncertainty that almost scares people away. And we're seeing that day to day with all this FUD. If you don't know what that is, it's fear, uncertainty, doubt. All this FUD with these Bitcoin ETFs being delayed. And so we know that the SEC has 15 days to make a decision on their GBTC Bitcoin ETF decision. Now, a move like that will undoubtedly affect the price of Bitcoin. Whether the SEC approves the ETF or not will affect whether it goes up and down. How is decentralization at play right there when we have a government agency that can make a decision and completely wreck or make the price action of one coin?
I don't think it's going to wreck it.
It won't wreck it, but it could definitely dump,
Yeah, but I mean, so dump compared to what? Like losing 1%? That's a Tuesday in Bitcoin.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
What's funny is like back in when crypto, it's 2023 now, crypto has evolved and matured a lot, but a couple of years ago, you would see 10%, 20, 30% on a
swings,
daily
crazy
basis.
Right.
Now to see 10% on one day, that's kind of a big deal in crypto. Like it's becoming, the volatility is consolidating a ton, and it shows the maturity of the industry. And I think for a lot of people who aren't educated or who aren't onboarded into the industry yet, they see the 10% dump or even the 1 to 2% dump a day. That's a lot for traditional markets.
Yeah.
I mean, for a traditional market, 1 to 2% a day is a lot.
Since 2014, it's actually more stable than you think. It just feels weird because crypto is one of the few markets that continues to have like 10% days or 13% days. But what is was I saw a piece of research probably from Masari or somebody. They actually boiled it down to, like, historically since 2014, there's usually only 3 or 4 days a year with more than 5% volatility.
And I guess it's because it depends how you're measuring it, right? What is a day? Because for some people,
A 24-hour period.
A 24-hour period, right? But in markets, when you're trading, that can mean very different things. The day could close at a certain hour, which is not technically 24 hours.
Right. Well, in crypto, we don't have that.
I guess it's true.
Yeah,
that's true. So I don't know if you saw, but Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg did an entire podcast completely in virtual reality. Maybe one could call it the metaverse, one could call it a virtual world, whatever you want to call it. This is incredible, and I think this gives just a small sneak peek into what the future holds with Web3.
Yeah. I mean, like, so this is. I saw the clip. I haven't watched the podcast, but the clip, the tracking on it seems pretty incredible for something that's...
Yeah, let's see this thing.
This is so great. Lighting change? Wow.
Look at that.
That's crazy.
Put the light anywhere.
Look at his
doesn't
eyes. He's
feel
like so
awkward to be
amazed
really
this is
close to
happening.
you.
No, it does. I actually moved you back a few feet before you got into
Well-
the headset. You were like right here.
I don't know if people can see this, but this is incredible. The realism here is just incredible. Where am I? Where are you, Mark? Where are we?
You're in Austin, right?
No, I mean this place. We're shrouded by darkness with ultra realistic face, and it just feels like we're in the same room. This is really the most incredible thing
Let's
I've ever
pause it
seen.
right here.
And sorry to be in your personal space.
Okay, think about how crazy this is.
He just apologized for being in his personal space, and they're across the country from each
in
other.
virtual worlds.
Yeah.
Think about how crazy this is. We're watching a clip of this, and it already looks so real.
Right.
But imagine when this is right in your eyeballs.
Yeah.
I mean, it must feel incredibly real.
I mean, things are starting to move a whole lot faster than they ever have
Yeah.
in this space.
Yeah.
I think that what you're seeing here is a response to the fact that they see themselves getting outpaced on the hardware side. And so, you've had an Oculus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I've used virtual reality.
They're not great.
They're not great, but a move like that, I feel like propels us so much further
Right.
ahead than where it's currently
That's
at.
what I'm saying. Like the experience on an Oculus has been just ho hum.
Yeah.
Mostly because, like, it feels like your face is like you can't do it for very long.
Your head hurts.
Your head
and
hurts. Your eyes
hurt.
Right.
Everything.
And you've seen we haven't really done it on camera for any of the shows, but like my glasses that I wear now,
Yep.
my X Reels,
Yeah.
like they're just like wearing these glasses.
Yeah.
Like they don't weigh down.
Yeah.
They don't. The light is refracted through a prism, so your eyes don't hurt. You can do it for like 6 hours and not really get fatigued. And if you look at, and we've talked about, we made fun of the Apple headset too, right? Like the ski goggles where they got the whole computer bolted to the side of your head. Like, I think because this must have been like 6 months ago. Let's focus on software because we see where hardware's going.
Yeah.
We can't win on hardware.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, imagine how Apple must react to something like this. Hopefully, they're already working on it. But this truly puts us in a virtual world that mimics the real world. I mean, this is as close as we've ever gotten. Imagine what it's going to be in 5, 10, 20 years. We could literally be living our real life in a virtual world.
Right. I know you've expressed a lot of excitement about Ready Player One becoming a reality.
You know, it's scary to think about because already so many people are consumed by their phones, by their computers, by their, gaming consoles. What's going to happen when it's even more real, when it's even more accessible? I mean, it's very concerning.
Yeah.
Paul
That's
and
a
I
good
were
clip.
talking Neuralink on the car ride from Fort Worth, and he was like talking about it being conducted in human trials, and we've talked about it, but I was telling him how all the monkeys like died pretty brutally. Do y'all know the actual story on that? Because Paul was asking me for details, and I don't remember. I just know that.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stories, and it's hard to get a good, clear picture of it because obviously, Neuralink's not talking about their failures in the same way that their
Right.
detractors are.
That's for sure.
But I've seen a lot of innovations in like direct to brain technology stuff that makes me think Neuralink might not even be the bleeding edge yet.
Yeah.
Like there's some other projects that I've seen that mostly working with folks that are disabled or paraplegic or quadriplegic.
Yeah, for sure that stuff. But yes, that stuff is has been worked on for like decades. I feel like.
But I've seen some really like compelling recent demos in the last couple of weeks.
Oh dang, you got to send me that.
Yeah.
So I know with Neuralink they had a bunch of failed experiments with their animal trials, and it didn't end the way they wanted to. But now they're doing human trials, which is very concerning.
But they're only saying like they're going to have like 10 users over the next 5 or 6 years.
10
Who
users
is signing
is a lot.
up for that?
Who is signing
Mostly
Like-
people who are extremely disabled.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think with Neuralink, or at least they frame it in a way that what they're trying to do is help a lot of disabled people. They're not trying to tap into your brain and have you have, scanning eyeballs of everything around your environment. I think they're really trying to make an impact. Who knows?
I mean, that's
Is that the rebrand of it? Because that's not what it
knows,
was 2
man?
years ago.
Well, I mean, there's always a rush to be second in
Right.
line. No one
That's-
unless it's an improvement to your life. Who's gonna sign up to have Elon Musk, put
In your
an
brain.
802.11 jack in the back of your head, right? Someone who's a quadriplegic or suffers from cerebral palsy or something
Yeah.
where they can't have motor control.
Yeah.
Or Parkinson's. I
Yeah.
think that was the one that I
Yeah.
saw was like a Parkinson's patient.
Yeah, the Parkinson's thing. Speaking of Elon and other people I think are weird as hell, Lex Friedman, I can't stand that guy. Such a pseudo-intellectual weirdo. I don't...
Yeah. Lex Friedman is really weird, but he's definitely an intelligent being.
Sure, whatever that means, but I don't... He gets in the room with all these people. Why? I mean, I know why. You know why, but...
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with anybody who's ever ran any big company who's super weird, but either makes millions, billions of dollars or, make some sort of success out of themselves. I think it's the same thing here.
But that's not Lex. I mean, I guess it is just for...
What's his background? I don't even know.
He's
Like,
just a academic... Or no, an engineer... Some kind of...
he's some guy.
Yeah, science or engineering.
Lex Friedman, we're
background.
calling you out, man.
I kind of
Yeah,
feel
I fucking hate you, dude.
I probably should look up his. I know who
Story.
he is, like from his podcast, but I don't really know where he came from.
Yeah.
because I don't get into like crypto tech.
Yeah,
influencers
computer
that way.
scientist.
Oh my gosh, what's Search GPT?
I like this extent. This is a good one. Good extension.
It's a Chrome extension. I think
Yeah.
I've heard of it actually.
Oh,
That's
they
cool.
put Bing
Okay.
back into ChatGPT this week.
Yep, they did. ChatGPT has made a lot of progress this week. They not only introduced once again the browsing, but they introduced an image and conversation feature, which seems to be phenomenal. You can put in an image of a bunch of stop signs, and you can ask it in one sentence to tell you whether you can park there or not. Stop signs. I meant parking signs. Jeez,
Right.
Stupid.
So I actually saw I got into the documentation last night because I was trying to figure out why my API bill was so high on ChatGPT, and I noticed that I saw a couple more models that were available via the API that were not available a couple of weeks ago, and I have to assume it's related to the same thing. So it once again shows how ChatGPT's execution of language is able to take existing AI models so much further. So what they added, if what I'm judging is correct, which maybe I'm wrong, it looks like they only took some very basic, previously open sourced image recognition modules and sound generation and sound recognition modules. These are open source. You can put them on your own on-prem stuff, but combining that with the advanced language interpretation abilities of ChatGPT is what superpowers it.
Yeah.
That's what makes it as interesting, because I mean, like IBM has had this same like a version of the same model available on Watson for almost 13 years now.
And Watson is only for enterprises, right?
I mean, you can it's priced that anybody could use it, but it's marketed towards enterprise.
And what can you do on Watson that you can't do on ChatGPT?
Well, you can do a lot of stuff with Watson you can't do with ChatGPT. It's just that Watson is not a LLM. Watson is a bunch of other technologies and models and generative technologies that were all bought and then rebranded to Watson.
Wow.
They do have some unique stuff that they developed themselves, but most of what Watson, it's called Watson, is actually other technologies that have been rebranded.
And you know, it's funny. I've seen some IBM AI commercials, and
they're hitting back.
Yeah, and what's crazy is these commercials are really targeted in a way that actually enhance workers, rather than a lot of people's misconception of AI going to replace workers. They are making tools to make the process more cost efficient and resource efficient.
And that's the whole like misnomer thing that Mark has talked about with IBM, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we got time for me to give you a clip off of my old YouTube channel. We can play part of it, but like I've
Want
done.
to do that as our last thing?
Well, it kind of ties into this Watson thing.
Yeah.
Is why. So
let's do it. Send it over.
let me find it real quick. But it's basically. So this is from 2017, I think. I'm gonna have to give you the link, Sohail, because it's an unlisted link. But essentially, that was the way, not just that we were framing it, but the way we were developing our Watson-based software. The clip that I'm probably going to, the whole thing's like 5 minutes. You don't watch the whole thing. But the one clip I would focus on is like this receipt interpretation tool. Basically, there was a sales organization we were working with, and they had 3 sales guys in this one department, and they were spending all of their time on data entry. We're talking like 15 hours a day of data entry and data, and we were able to basically give them their time back so they could actually go out and make sales. And it was all through. I'll send it to you after the show because I can't talk and look it up at the same time.
Why don't you just give a summary of it? And
yeah,
then
that's what I'm doing. Yeah. You can talk to the video later. So they were able to get their day back, and it was just a combination of simple image recognition tools, which is exactly what was just implemented in ChatGPT this week. Watson had it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Plus a little bit of automation with a SaaS platform like Zapier. So they were taking an upload form on their website, taking this data that was coming in, putting it into a database, having Watson analyze it, enhancing that database, and then calling it a day as opposed to spending 15 hours sifting through images and hand marking things right or wrong.
I mean, imagine how much we're going to be able to do with AI. I believe in AI so much. I think it's going to be one of the greatest things for humans.
And to put like a finer point on this, what this means, because this is like, again, 10 years old,
Right.
that example. There's a couple of projects I'm working on. I'm going to talk about it broadly so I don't like dox exactly what it is. But one of the projects I'm working on is only made possible by AI. And the types of problems that are being attacked it's a little bit like fracking. Are you familiar with like fracking in the oil business?
Yeah, of course.
So the reason why we frack is because the price of oil got above a certain price. And so we couldn't really do fracking until it was profitable to do so. Right. So what we're talking about with AI is the exact opposite. We've got this whole layer of activity that is kind of like lost money or lost effort, lost value in some way that we just don't even bother trying to solve that problem because the hours of humans' lives it would take to solve those problems are too expensive to get the value out of it.
Right.
But AI allows us to extract that value. And we're talking about things like insurance company settlements. Like it would cost too much time in small claims court to go to court to get that extra $500.
I mean, or the inefficiencies in government.
Perfect. I mean, perfect example. Anything where you're talking about a large, big data problem that requires human judgment to solve it.
Human and monetary resources.
Right. And specialized human knowledge, right? Where it's like $300, $600 an hour resources. No one's going to spend time on a $50 problem if you're paid $600 an hour.
Yeah, but even using AI for like Excel, that's such a small little thing. I mean, in everybody's daily lives. I mean, it's amazing. It saves you so much time, so much energy. AI is the future.
Yes.
And I think that's a wrap.
Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.